Hi everybody, it's Jim from Sprague Woodturning. In this video, we're going to use some medium Starbond to inlay some awesome artificial turquoise in this beautiful black walnut bowl. So we haven't done a natural inlay in a while, so I figured that we would do that, and this is kind of not even really a natural inlay, but regardless, I think that it's going to look really cool. So this is a piece of black walnut. I believe that this was roughed out on the channel as well in one of my roughing out videos. And the size on it is 14 1/8 by 14 7/8. So, you know, it's a little over a ½ inch out of round, and this is typical of twice turned bowls. Of course, this has been in my kiln, it's kiln dried, and bowls will always typically pull in on themselves the length of the tree. So the length the tree would have been growing in this orientation. So here's your end grain. So it always typically will pull in on itself. There should be some really beautiful grain in this. Now, Starbond sent me this turquoise inlay, and you know, when I first opened it up, I was like, wow, you know, that's really cool. Like, that looks 100% turquoise to me. The browns, the color, I mean, it all to me looks real, but it's not. It's actually artificial, come to find out. And so actually, this is supposedly real turquoise on this side, but the problem that I have with this, and that's not even inside the bag, that brown piece that's on the outside, there is 0 different colors in this compared to this. This to me looks real, and this to me doesn't look real, but it is. So, you know, I just find that interesting. So we're going to inlay that in the rim of this bowl and see what it looks like. And along with that, I also got some of this mother of pearl. We're not going to use this in this video, but it is 100% real. And Starbond actually has a number of natural inlays that are on their website if you want to go there and check it out. And you can actually use my code to get your discount. And one thing that I've never really shown on the channel before is a debonder. If you are going to work with CA glues, you should have a debonder. And the reason for that is, I mean, over the years I've welded my hands to many a bowls, and if I didn't have the debonder, I probably would have lost a lot of skin getting my hands off of them. So you should always have a little bottle of this on hand so that you can work away at it and free your hand from whatever you decide to glue it to, gluing, you know, your fingers or to your nose, you know, whatever. All right, so what I'm going to use for this inlay too is the medium Starbond. I'm not going to be using the thin. And the reason why I like to use the medium for this is because this stuff is really granular, and that medium CA will flow through the inlay well. All right, let's get a glue block on the bottom of this, get it trimmed up and ready for the inlay. Before you put any waste blocks on the bottom of your bowls, this one has anchor seal on it, and if you try to stick the hot melt glue to that, it is not going to stay. So it's important to get rid of all of that, and I'm just using the Cuts-All grinder to do that. And there is the hot melt glue on a waste block. Make sure you use lots of glue so it doesn't delaminate. Most cases I just eyeball it. These bowls are thick enough that you can trim them up and still get an inlay in the rim, and you won't you know, it's not going to be too thin on one side. We'll let that set up, and then we'll get it on the lathe. So when you're roughing out your bowls, it's important to leave them 1 inch thick for every 10 inches in diameter. So if you've got a 20-inch bowl, it would be 2 inches thick. And I know that a lot of people may look at that and say, well, that's a lot of thickness. You need it. Some species will move a lot more than others. If you don't leave enough thickness there, then when you trim it out by the rim, you may not be able to get the full height that you want. So it's important to rough your bowls out so that you can turn them again and trim them up and sand them. And then, if you want to do an inlay in the rim, it's also really important to have a thick bowl like that as well, because you can't do it if you don't have the material there. So 1 inch for every 10 inches in diameter, and you shouldn't have any issues. Not sure if you noticed, but I was just touching my thumb to the surface of the bowl. A lot of times you can get that feedback through the tool, but sometimes you can't. So, I'm not sticking my thumb on the corner. I'm just sticking it very lightly on the face. And then you'll feel if there's any variations there that you need to keep trimming or not. It's just probably more a production thing where you're not turning the lathe off and looking all the time. I know that may sound ridiculous to you, but when you turn hundreds of bowls a year, the less amount of time you turn the lathe off, the more productive you'll be in the end. So, that's just a little trick. Be careful because that corner can be razor sharp. So if you do rub your finger on that corner, well, you might regret it. So don't do it. All right, what I'm going to do is throw this in my clean room overnight. I suspect that there's a lot of built-up tension in this, and I just don't want it to move after the inlay goes in. So it'll be interesting. I'll throw this in the clean room overnight, and we'll see what kind of movement's in it the next day, if any. All right, so it has been actually 3 days. One night in the clean room where there's heat. And then it's been out in my workshop here for 2 days. And there's been some movement. It's not too bad. Not at all, actually. There's probably about, I'm going to move my finger back. And I'm hoping the camera is going to be able to pick this up. I guess maybe I'll switch fingers. No, that's probably about 1/16 of an inch. So maybe turn it on slow speed, maybe you get a better sense of it. So the movement, I'm just going to back this out a bit for those who are curious. Here is the end grain, so the tree would have been growing in this orientation like this. The side grain is what has moved outwards like this. So that tells me that, you know, this bowl, zoom out a little more here, and it's not just this bowl, it's pretty much every bowl that's twice turned and has side grain and end grain in it, like a normal bowl does. So, you know, this was pulled in on itself because the end grain was longer. We trimmed that away, took some tension out of it, and now what has happened is the bowl has relaxed. So that's why it's hitting, when it hits, this is all side grain that it hits on, and then it's not touching the end grain, and then right back on side grain on this side here. So, you know, I thought that that might be interesting for some people. And again, here's your, this is the end grain here on this piece, like this. And anyway, I thought that it might be interesting for those who are curious. All right, let's get this trimmed up and then sand it and get our inlay in it. So as you watch me trim up this bowl again, I'll just talk a little bit further about this. Wood is an organic thing, so it will gain and lose moisture with the seasons. So in Canada, in the wintertime, it's dry. So a lot of the bowls that I have that are sitting on my table, if you measured them, they're going to be out maybe a 1/16 of an inch end grain to side grain. And this is very common. And then in the summertime when it's humid, then these bowls can actually go in the other direction. So even though it's basically cut down and been dried, it's still an organic thing and it still will move with the seasons. That's why it's important to seal up your bowls. The finishes that I use are one of the reasons why I do that. They limit how much moisture is allowed to enter and leave the wood, where if you just use, say, a product like mineral oil or a wax, then, you know, the wood itself is probably going to absorb and lose moisture more than, say, a finish like I use. In that, you know, resin is another one. If you covered this bowl completely in resin and sealed it, then you probably wouldn't have any movement per year. Anyway, I thought that I would cover that again. I know that I have covered it in the past, so but that was, I think it was a long time ago. I should also mention that this is a commission for Ron. Ron's been on my commission list for quite some time now, and I do apologize. I know that there's a lot of people waiting on bowls. I'm trying to work through my list as fast as I can. For the most part, I've stopped taking commissions until I can fulfill those back orders. So I'm sorry. I know that I've probably disappointed a lot of people, but you know, I just can't take on any more commissions until I'm caught up. Finally, on to sanding. I've been asked a number of times to do this again. So this is, I'm starting off with 60 grit. So 60 to 320 is typically what I will sand normal bowls like this. Possibly 400 in the inlay area, but that's about it. But, you know, it may surprise a lot of people how slow I'm moving across the surface. And, you know, if you look in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see some tool marks left over from the gouge. But literally, with that 60 grit, just a couple seconds on it, and they virtually all disappear. A lot of people stress about getting a pristine surface prior to going to sandpaper. But, you know, if you look at how fast I'm going, and again, this may surprise a lot of people, you know, let the sandpaper do the work for you, not you work for the sandpaper. As you move up into higher grits, you can typically move faster across the surface, because if you don't, you can end up heat checking your bowl. But when I start off, this is typically how slow I sand at when I first start sanding. To make best use of your sandpaper, sand that piece on the inside. Typically, when you're power sanding like this, the center of the sandpaper actually doesn't get used up when you're sanding on the inside. So before I pitch, that sandpaper into the garbage, I'll take it and run it on the outside of the bowl because the center part of that is virtually pristine and it really hasn't been used all that much. Then put on a new piece after that. Time to cut the inlay area in, so I'm using a freshly sharpened 3/16 inch parting tool from Crown, and you really want a nice sharp tool when you're doing this, that way you don't tear up the end grain on the inside of the groove, and then just hit it with a little bit of 80 grit before the inlay goes in. We haven't used any Starbond in a while, and I'm going to use the medium. The reason for that is this inlay is quite coarse, so it should flow well through it, and we'll get probably less bubbles and foaming with this as opposed to the thin. Now I can't find my small bottles of the medium, so we're gonna have to throw it into this thin container, but it is medium. I don't know if there's really any right or wrong way to do this. You'll see me use the lid off of a jar to do this as well. The goal is just to get it in there, try to get it below the surface and fill in any of the voids and gaps that there are. I always put down a piece of paper, that way you can pick up your inlay material easily. And it's clean. Put it back in your container. I actually didn't think this bowl was going to take this much inlay material, but it is. Get the other container. Not much more though. I think it's going to be easier to pour it from the lid. That brown piece doesn't seem to fit the inlay. Do kind of wish that maybe it was a little bit finer than what it is, but it's still going to give a really granular look, which I think is going to be probably one of the best things about this piece. Let's get our fancy vibrating device. Every time I do one of these videos, I get lots of great suggestions on fancy vibrating devices, the random orbital sanders, sticking that on the side. I just don't really see the need for it. Just tapping that screwdriver on the side really knocks the material down and fills in a lot of gaps. Thanks for the suggestions, but when it comes to resin and having a vibrating table to release bubbles from the work, I can definitely see that, and I might even try to make something like that. But when it comes to putting these inlays in the rims like this, all you need is a screwdriver tapping it on the side. Of course, the big thing is I don't want to see any wood through the inlay at the bottom, so it looks good to me. There. Let's get this leveled and then we will hit it with the glue. I'll zoom in here and show you this. It's going to look really sharp actually when it's done. Alright, let's get this leveled and get some glue in it. So I'm going to fill this up right to the very top, because when this glue dries it does shrink a little bit. Anyway, that's been my experience. So when I do inlays like this, I typically will put a coat of finish on before I do any inlay work. And the reason for that is I'm usually working with thin CA glue. So if you're using thin CA glue and you don't put a coat of finish on it, and you happen to get a glue run down the inside of the bowl or the outside on the end grain, it's going to stain. But with a medium, it's not so much a concern. That's all she'll take. I'll give you a better view of it. There, I think that's it. I'll watch it for a little bit to make sure that it doesn't drop any. And if it does, I'll add a little bit more. But I think that we'll be good to go tomorrow to grind this back. And I think it's going to be a really cool looking thing. All right, we'll see you then. Cut the inlay back. I'm using my random orbital sander, and these are 60 grit PSA discs. And to sand the inlay back on this piece, I think I used 5 or 6 of them. The inlay material is actually quite hard, harder than I had anticipated it being. So what I'll do is go around, flatten the inlay completely to the surface of the wood, and then once I've got that done, I'll turn the lathe on and blend it all in, and that way you're ensured to have a nice flat inlay, because regardless of what you use, rarely will you never not have to do another filling. In most cases, stuff like this, you'll fill it 3 or 4 times before you get it completely. Guess I got to leave that light off so don't blind you. So we definitely have some filling to do. I'm a little disappointed in this, I'm not going to lie. You know, when I smashed up that piece, the color went all the way through it. But, I mean, it's just here and there in little spots. It's actually still looks pretty cool. I actually like it. Just wish, maybe this inlay is meant to be used below the surface so you don't cut through it. And I kind of really intended on doing that, but you know, these pieces, they move around. They're quite slick, so they move around quite easily. And some of them got set up above the surface. So, okay, we got to do another gluing. I'm not going to show that. I'm just going to pour some glue on, let it set, and then I'll be back for sand this back again. But yeah, there's quite a big glue void there. This is very, very typical when you use CA glues. This is very common. I see it almost every time that I actually do any natural inlays. See you in a bit. Again, cutting back with the 60 grit. I believe that I filled this piece 4 or 5 times. I can't remember for sure. And sometimes it was just in little areas, and sometimes it was big areas like on the previous screen. Anyway, once you've got it all filled, then I started working through the grits, and the bowl will sand it to 320, but I did sand the inlay to 400 prior to putting any finish on it. And the last thing I like to do is just run the 320 down into the bowl, or if I've got 400 on it, that will work as well. And you know, when you're as careful as you are with the glue, sometimes you might get a little bit of splatter. So then you got to remove that before the first coat of finish goes on, or else you're going to have a little lump in that spot. All right, I keep getting asked to show the can. This is it, Waterlux Original VOC Medium Sheen. It's a little hard to see on there, but that's what it is. That's what the can looks like. Even though I've been at this a number of years, I'm always really surprised when that first coat of finish goes on and you look at that beautiful wood. That dull, dark brown didn't really look all that great, and that first coat of finish goes on and you're like, yeah, that's nice, really nice. Well, you've heard me say it here 100 times that black walnut is the king of North American hardwoods, and this is why. And that Waterlux, did that ever bring that grain alive? Try and show the inlay, but it's Very tough too. She's a beauty. All right, see you tomorrow for the second coat. Just like I do on my resin bowls, I also use the Be All buffing system, the Triple E, to buff the Waterlux finish on bowls like this. Waterlux does respond well to buffing. So the goal here is to basically flatten the finish and make it all the same kind of shine. That's what you're looking for when you're buffing back, especially the first coat of finish, because there will be shiny areas and there will be dull areas. So you want it to all look the same before the next coat of finish goes on. And then of course, the denatured alcohol to clean the surface. Good morning, back with the Waterlux Medium Sheen. Definitely looks better with the second coat of finish on, that's for sure. Definitely just can't go wrong with walnut, that's for sure. These lights might be too strong to really even see the inlay. That's better, I guess. What do you think? I think it's pretty cool. All right, if there's a third coat, I will do it the same as this. Otherwise, we'll see you when we're doing the bottom. Time to free this piece from the waste block. So first I wanted to do was cut down that tenon. That way you don't have so far to go with the parting tool, which you'll see momentarily. There was probably about 1 inch to 1.25 inches in diameter is what I left. And you know, you probably could have just smacked that and it would have broke free, but it's a little risky to do so. So I like to take the handsaw and just free it that way. That way you don't tear any grain on the bottom of the bowl. Here I'm using the vacuum chuck, and it's not very often that I get it on the first attempt, but there you have it. It's a pretty rare occasion. And the bottom of this piece was also sanded from 120 to 320. Didn't really see the need to go any lower than that. The great thing about sanding bottoms like this is they're all face grain and they're easy to sand. So that's it for the video. Let's finish this up and have a last little chat about this beautiful little bowl and see who it's actually for. All right, let's have a last little look at this beautiful bowl. I'm actually really digging this inlay. Let me know in the comments what you think about it. The color variation in it, to me, makes it look more realistic. This is 13 3/4 across and 4 3/4 high, and it took 3 coats of the Waterlux. And it is a beautiful black walnut bowl. Here is the very bottom. As this is meant to be a through the week upload, I just haven't got time to get finish on it, but that's what the bottom looks like. Now, I told you in the video that this was a commission for Ron, but it's actually not for Ron. It's for his daughter-in-law, Lisa. So this, congratulations, Lisa. This is your new salad bowl, and it is an absolutely stunner. Hopefully you enjoy it as much as I enjoyed making it. I'm gonna set this down. Don't forget to put designer epoxy in the comments down below to be entered into the 3-gallon kit at 90,000. And of course, by leaving a comment down below, it'll also be entered into my bowl draws at every 5,000 subscribers. And we are coming up on 90,000 here very quickly. This video and maybe Friday's video might be it as far as being able to comment for the kit and for a new bowl if you wish, or dish or something from me anyway. that was a total fun project to do. I'm going to get some more inlay materials from Starbond, and I'll show them here on the channel. I believe the rest of them are like maybe dyed abalone shells, and so there's some pretty neat stuff there. So we'll get a look at those in the future. So on Friday is my typical upload at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I've been setting my videos as a premiere. And by doing that, it's almost treated like a live stream. So you can get on there and go on to the live chat, and we can talk about the project that I'm doing that week. So it's kind of a cool feature. Again, thanks to those who gave me super thanks, and there's a super thanks bottom at the bottom of the video. Truly appreciate it. People donating money to me, loving what I do. I really do appreciate it. Anyway, that's down at the bottom of the video if you want to give me a cup of coffee or something like that. So I really do appreciate it. That is for sure. Friday's video is going to be another big, heavy project, and it's in the exotic category. I'm just going to leave it at that. I don't want to spoil it. So please come on back on Friday and see this beautiful thing that I've made. I think it's beautiful anyway, but I'll let you guys be the judge of that. All right, well, that's it. I'm out of here. Take care, stay safe, don't forget the bell. Please share my videos with your friends. That thumbs up certainly will help. And yeah, we'll see you on Friday. Take care.